What's up, teachers? It's Nickel here, and we're going to be taking a look at how you actually organize all of this information into your classroom materials, the tasks you're asking students to do, when do due dates come up, and etc. All these teacher tasks, the things that we have to plan for each unit, let's break it down and do a summary of how this all works. So to begin with, there's really three main components. First off, you have your classroom website. The classroom website will list the different units, whether it's unit 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And students will be able to click on each of those units then to then access the green circle. They must go through all of the green circle to be able to get into the blue square assignment. At the end of the blue square tasks is a button to get to the black diamond, and so on and so forth to the double black diamond. So this is really the task list. These are the playlists that you're going to be creating here. Those are going to live on your classroom website. The learning management system, aka Google Classroom, or perhaps you're using Schoology, or maybe one that I haven't heard of before, but regardless, your learning management system, the thing that is your digital classroom, this is essentially going to become your turn-in tray. This is where students will submit their work. This is where they will pick up their assignments to look for feedback from you as a teacher. And then this is where their grades where they will be graded. So I call that just our turn-in tray compared to the task list. The classroom website is where they go in order to find out what they need to do next or to figure out where they are. The third component, the third leg here to our stool, are something that I call the intro talks. Now I call them intro talks, and I focus on that intro idea because this is something that I use to start the classroom with the lesson of the day. And I'm typically focusing my intro talks on misconceptions that students have from prior assignments, or perhaps I find something in the news that's really cool that relates, and so I want to share it then. Or sometimes I have a story that's related to the content, and so I like to share my story to kind of build some rapport with my students and get to know them on a better level. So your lectures can stay, your short videos that you like to play can stay. If you have a sweet rap song you like to do, that can stay, because all that stuff can still be taught to the entire class. But in order to focus your time as a teacher in a typical class period, that intro talk needs to be just a portion of the class, not taking up the entire class, because it's important to give students time to actually work through their tasks. Since it's self-paced, they're going to need that time to actually start working through the assignments. So I plan my intro talks for each day. Some days it's a very short, just touching base with students, letting them know about upcoming deadlines and due dates. Other times I'm doing an actual mini lesson where I'm expanding on an idea that we're learning about in our classroom website. So I think about my intro talk and I figure out how much time that's going to be. And maybe that takes just 10 minutes of the class period. Let's say we have a 60-minute class period here. What I would do next is after I end my intro talk, I would split the rest of the class time up in half. So if we have 50 minutes left, I would let students know that we're going to do work time for 22 minutes. Now, the reason I said 22 minutes is because I need to figure out a halfway point. Instead of having students continually work for 50 minutes, there's been a lot of research that shows that if you chunk up their time, they're much better at accomplishing tasks. Also, to give them just kind of a movement break, I like to have just a 2-minute, and it's amazing what a 2-minute brain break will do. But it has become a staple in my classroom. So a 2-minute brain break here to separate these two work time sessions. You end up with a little bit of extra time, for students to take care of their items or for giving any final words of wisdom at the end of your class period. This is typically what a class period looks like, and this gives students, a solid amount of time. So the way that I typically structure that is you have your intro talk, and then you do half of the time as work time. The other half of the time is work time, followed by that intermission, which is just a 2-minute brain break. Give it a try if you haven't tried that, because it's amazing just how 2 minutes is enough for students to regain their composure and get back to their focus. Well, let's look at a typical playlist timeline. since day to day, you'll have your intro talk and then you'll give students work time. Well, what does it look like from their side of things as they go through these different playlists? So now we're looking at the playlist. This one is going to be student driven. They are going to work through these at their own pace. But I want to kind of show you how it's organized and then also kind of how the students are going to work through it. So a typical playlist timeline here. If we remember, this green circle, blue square, black diamond, and double black diamond is all for the same unit. And so they're all going to share a long-term learning target. So long-term learning target. I like to start that on the top of each page just so they see a lot of repetition of what that overall unit learning target is going to be. What is our big picture that we're trying to accomplish? And that will continue throughout on all the pages, followed by the green circle learning target, which is that DOK1 learning target. The blue square would have the appropriate blue square learning target, which is going to be related to DOK2. Black diamond, again, would have the black diamond learning target with the DOK3 level of learning target, and the double black diamond would have that DOK level 4 learning target. So you can see they all have the long-term learning target. They all have their separate playlist learning target, and then it goes right into the tasks. So these tasks then are what the students will accomplish or will work towards in order to accomplish the learning target of that playlist. So each page might have a couple tasks. They might have more tasks or less based on the complexity of the assignments for each different unit. But typically for the double black diamond, I like to give them one task or maybe just 2 tasks, things that are really broad for them to then go out and it's more of a prompt for them to create something or to engage in a task. And so you can see here that we have a structure, and the structure is repeating, which gives the students some reassurance of so that they know what is going to be expected of them and what they need to do each time. At the end of the page, then I create this little summary box so that they can just double check and make sure they got all of the assignments completed. So I'll put those in a list so they know what they'll be graded on, and they can double check to make sure that that has been done before they move on to the last thing on each page. The last thing is something that I call a level up quiz. Now I let students use any of their prior work, any classroom notes, in order to accomplish the level up quiz. And actually when I design the level up quiz, I directly look at their notes. So that in order for them to be able to pass the level up quiz, they have to have those notes completed. So for me, this is a great checkpoint to make sure that they got everything they needed to in the green circle. There's this last task, and I call it the level up quiz. It's a Google form that I create, and it's a self-graded thing because it's multiple choice or fill in the blank, and students have to complete it. Now, since they have to get 100%, they get as many tries as they want, and they can use their notes. So sometimes they'll just make a silly mistake and they'll have to go back through it more than once. Sometimes they won't understand something very well. And this is when I'm able to touch base with students. And I can tell you more about that and how that works as we progress in this learning about the ski slope model. But just see here that there's a setup of each page that is consistent. So the green circle then, it needs to be done by a certain time, the blue square a certain time, black diamond a certain time, and so on. And so it's really important to start to think about, well, what does this look like as a complete unit then? Now, I tell students it's a self-paced model because I want them to be working at their own pace and progressing through the tasks, but I also let them know that there's a checkpoint for each of the levels. And those checkpoints are when they should have the green circle or the blue square or the black diamond done so that they can stay on pace. So if you think about the old school video games, the screen would kind of pull the player along. Well, I don't want students to get left behind the frame here. So I'm letting them know the frame is moving along and I need you to be moving at this pace to stay within the frame of our game here. If you want to move ahead, you can, but otherwise you must stay within this frame. So really, I look at my tasks and I say, okay, for this unit, let's say I think it's going to take students about 1, 2, 3, 4 days to complete their green circle tasks. That means I'll put a checkpoint there for the green circle on that Thursday. Now this allows me a few things. I can start to see which students aren't done by that checkpoint, and then I can touch base with them one-on-one. I also always send a parent email on the checkpoint day. It's a generic email that just says, hey, your student is starting to fall behind in class. They should be doing homework. Since they haven't used their class time in a way to get all the work done, then obviously they need to put in a little bit of extra time outside of their class time in order to accomplish the tasks. Or maybe they just had something going on and they need that extra time. That's why I call it a checkpoint and not a due date, because I still accept those green circle assignments until the very last due date of this unit. But the checkpoint lets them know, hey, are you on pace or are you starting to fall behind? Now, what I do as my focus here throughout the green circle time is I focus all of my intro talks during these first 4 days on those green circle tasks. I then switch my focus after that checkpoint, and then my intro talks start to focus on the blue square tasks, because that's where the students should be at. And so those intro talks help students kind of gauge where they are and start to really analyze, and they can kind of self-assess to see if they're really gaining the information. It's also a great time for cold calling and having group discussions, so you can also gauge if students are understanding the material that they're completing in their assignments. So the blue square would start, or students should be on the blue square after the green circle checkpoint, but the blue square has a checkpoint as well. And when that blue square checkpoint comes up, then the students would get a second parent email if they haven't met the checkpoint. Or maybe a student got really far ahead but then fell behind, and then maybe this is their first email. But at each of the checkpoints, I send an email so that parents know where their students are, if they're starting to fall behind or not. After the blue square checkpoint, students should be working on the black diamond assignments. And again, this is when I'll start focusing my intro talks on the black diamond assignments. And that, again, helps students kind of self-assess to where they are and if they're gaining the information, if they're really comprehending what they need to know from the different assignments. Now you see here, there is no room for the double black diamond, and that's because I structure the time so that all students can meet the expectations, because a black diamond means that they're meeting the expectation, or they have satisfactory work. Now, if they want to have extreme or advanced or exemplary work, then they have to get the double black diamond completed, which means that a student in my class must complete the green circle and the blue square before those checkpoints so that they have enough time to then move through the black diamond tasks before the due date, and even get the double black diamond tasks completed by that due date as well. So everything must be completed by that final date. But those students who are our advanced students who do exemplary work, there's a good chance they'll be able to move through a lot of these tasks faster, which gives them more time to work on the double black diamond task. Also, students that are really, really motivated for that double black diamond, they then might just need to do some homework along the way or do some extra work so that they are ahead of the schedule instead of being right on pace. So this is a way that we can kind of create some extra challenges in our classroom by creating these checkpoints to keep students accountable, having an end of unit due date, but then also giving that extra opportunity for students to have the extended thinking in that double black diamond set of tasks. All right, so as I've described, we have really two systems here for our assessment. We have formative and summative opportunities. The formative opportunities are going to come from all of those learning management system assignments. So like the Google Classroom assignments and Schoology assignments. As you're grading those, you're going to be able to gain a lot of information, and those should help inform your intro talks so that you can help explain some ideas that maybe just aren't sticking for students or they need some repetition with. I also have a classroom notebook where students record information and observations from experiments. They record their vocabulary there, and I have them do some of their assignments there that are maybe more of just a check to see that they got it done and not really looking for accuracy, but more just looking for completion. I'll typically format those so that they fit within their notebook. But I asked them to show me their notebook. Every single one of the playlists, asked them to bring me their notebook. That lets me see, are they taking notes? Are they getting the information that they need? And if not, I asked them to go back and redo those pieces. There's also a level up quiz at the end of each of the playlists. And again, that is a final check. And I also have a board in my classroom that I call the magnet board. Each student writes their name on the magnet board, and then there's a little section for the green circle, blue square, black diamond, and double black diamond. They move their magnet from one section to the next as they complete each task. This is actually a really great formative assessment tool because they have to go up to the front of the room to move their magnet in order to show that they're moving on to the next level. This oftentimes catches my eye as a teacher. Sometimes you'll see students stand up and you're like, I don't know if that's actually where they're at yet. And it allows you to pause and catch them real quick and connect with them, communicate with them to see where they're at and see where they need to be if they're not in the right spot. So there's a lot of room for formative assessment here, because not only are all of these built in, but you can also move around the classroom. Since you're not in front of the classroom directing the students, giving them specific instructions, you can then move around and check on students, especially students who are not turning in work. When you notice that they're not getting assignments completed, you can be there with them to help them accomplish things or just keep them focused. There's a lot of that happening as well. Now, in terms of summative assessments, I give an end of unit test as the summative assessment. And then another thing that is encouraged and that I've begun doing is to have a little mini assessment, maybe like a quiz or a simple assessment that's smaller, that focuses more on the actual playlist learning target. So at the end of the green circle, at the green circle checkpoint, I tell my students, now that we're at the green circle checkpoint, all of the green circle information is fair game for me to assess you on. So therefore, on the checkpoint date, we're going to have an assessment over the green circle. Now, students that move to the blue square or are way ahead on the black diamond or something, that assessment, since they've already got the green circle completed and they're going even more in depth, that assessment should be very simple for them because they've already gotten there and moved beyond it. Whereas the students who are just getting done with the green circle, that should be reflected in the assessment as well. And students who have not completed the green circle, obviously shouldn't have, or they most likely won't have the background to be able to do that green circle assessment. But it's a good way to get some extra summative assessments in there to make sure that students are moving along and actually grasping the information from each of the playlists. So we have our assignment grade. A lot of schools call it the assignment grade and an assessment grade, or you could call these formative and summative assessments. And then these are what combine then to give the student their overall grade for the different unit. Now, as teachers, we kind of have the opportunity in our buildings and based on the way that we score and grade to kind of weight those in the way that you think is most appropriate. This is like a progress, knowing like how much progress they're making in class, and this is more of an assessment. So I kind of frame them in that way and apply fractions that relate. In the beginning of the year, I typically do a 50-50 to kind of show the importance of making progress on the tasks, and I typically scaffold that then and end up at somewhere like 40-60 in terms of 40% of the student's grade comes from the progress of their assignments, and then 60% comes from assessing what it is that they learned. So I hope that this gives you an idea of some of the components, what it looks like when the rubber meets the road, whether you're thinking about the unit timeline or how each of the playlists are organized, or even just what a class looks like on a typical day. Hopefully this gives some clarity and you can start to see how you as a teacher still are able to do your direct instruction teaching in short periods of time by opening the door to allow students to move at their own pace so that they can get the assignments done, as they're able to gain that information. That's all for now, and I'll see you on the next video.